Hello and welcome back to Enterprise Architecture. Now, last episode we set up this delightful little coal plant here right on the edge of the river that feeds into our lake right by our main base. So we now have solved most of our power problems for the foreseeable future. Today, we are going to be turning our attention to steel production by using the remaining coal nodes over on this other side of the lake. So, with no further ado, let's dive right in. Alright, so to get started, we need to first unlock our basic steel production so that we can get the foundry to even make our steel in the first place. So let's go ahead and get all of that up and online. Perfect. That also means that we can come back over here, grab up our extra tickets, and buy all of those wonderful steel beam based pieces that we couldn't buy before. So we're just going to go through and grab up all of the things that were problematic. I think walls? Yeah, we still need the steel framed windows. And then under architecture, there are going to be a lot here. These pillars, the structural frame set, etc. that we need to grab up there. And I think that might be, oh no, of course, we have metal grip foundations, steel walls, all of this good stuff that we need to add. Okay, wonderful. So let's go ahead and buy all of those. First things first, let's go ahead and look up our recipe for steel. The steel ingots here, we are going to need raw iron and we're going to need raw coal. It looks like 3 each into a foundry. Now we have a lot of coal. I think we have 4 normal nodes that we can tap into. We also have a decent amount of iron over in that same vicinity that we can start using. Now, we're not just going to use our coal to be making steel. Some of our coal we're also going to use to make carbon, because this carbon refining is going to be the way that we get our solar panels here. But obviously we can't do any of this until we have our steel production up and online. But we are going to go ahead and unlock this milestone, because that way we can start making our carbon and refining it as well. So if this is the spot that we're going to build on, I do want to make sure that we have enough room that we can get to that limestone node over there as well. So we're going to build up in the sky a little bit here. And looking at this shape, I think this kind of invites itself for a bit of a shape that sits on a diagonal, at least on the bottom floor here. So for our foundations, let's just go and grab our standard foundations. And I think I'm just going to set this at a 45-degree angle to the actual location that we have here. So right along this edge, I think it wants to sit right here-ish. Let's make sure that we get that exactly how we want it. I think like that. And then we're going to come up a whole bunch of foundations. Now these rotate every time you put them. I'm not going to worry about that right now because you're only going to see the edge. Okay, I think that's going to be pretty good. We are going to give ourselves plenty of room that we can deal with that carbon, or the copper edge here that we're also going to run into. So whatever we do, we want to make sure that we can still get a copper miner underneath it. Looks like we can use smart mod here if we don't use the hold feature. For whatever reason, the hold feature is kind of messing things up. So we can go ahead and drop a very big platform with it. Alright, that is an 11 by 11, and I think that will be a good place to start this. Now we need to start getting our coal into our facility, and the way to do that here, I think we're going to go ahead and tap all of these nodes right away. Not a lot of reason to stop. Miners aren't especially power hungry in the grand scheme of things, so we're going to put all 4 of these down. Right here, right here. Okay, great. So there is also this pure iron node that we are going to be taking advantage of all the way up here on the hill, just above these last 2 miners. And so with all of that, we should be able to have a decent amount of steel production off of these 3 miners. The other half here, at least for temporary purposes, we are going to start using for our carbon production. Although once we get that up and running, because we are in cheat mode, I think I've told everybody this a couple of times now, but we are using no cost building. Once something is unlocked, we are treating it as free. So To that end, we don't really need to produce a lot of carbon. I just need to make it so that I have a source of it for now, because again, the rule is I can't use the thing until I can actually make it. So let's go ahead and set up a small carbon facility down here just as a temporary space while we work on our main steel production here. So let's see here. I think carbon gets made in a constructor, if I remember correctly. Let's go ahead and take a look at this, put this in here, and let's see. Can we do carbon dust? Yes. And I don't think we can do carbon sheeting yet though, or the carbon, what is it, the carbon filters, whatever they're called. Looks like we can only do carbon dust right now. That's fine. We'll go ahead and start making that in here. Let's go ahead and wire it up. There we go, and that's just going to make a small amount of carbon dust for us. I'm going to go up 2 levels before I actually start my real factory here. And now, again, we're going to build this out in exactly the same footprint. This is going to be 11 by 11 right now. Let's see, this way over 11. There we go. So we've basically got 2 foundations worth to be able to move things around and get things into place. That should be plenty for us. That also means that we can just basically bring in our carbon, our coal from any side that we want and get that engaged into this facility. So we're just going to start running our coal down this way. Again, we're only getting 60 per minute, so not a lot. And we want to bring this into the factory to the logistics floor on this side. So to that end, we are going to go ahead and just put ourselves a wall down, just something that we can connect things to, just like this. There's our conveyor wall. And now we can start bringing in items by coming down here and connecting it up to that line. So we want this to go the other way. Actually, the only way you can get it to go the other way is if you put a belt on it. For whatever reason, reversing these lifts has stopped working for me. I'm not sure what's up. It used to be that you could push the R button and that would just flip it. Let's go ahead and put that in there. Okay, and now our coal is coming in. Now we just need to repeat the same thing with our iron. All right, so there are a variety of ways that we can now get all of our items from that side of the facility to this side of the facility and into our smelters. So let's start by laying out our row of those. And actually, foundries. We need to say foundry because I'm going to keep messing this up every single time. So this is relatively straightforward because we only have one set of inputs we really need to worry about for the foundry. That means we're probably going to end up with stacked belts of some sort. Let's go ahead and put this down. Let's make it right off the edge of this. I do notice that the footprint is a little bigger than it actually purports to be, so this will work okay. This will also make it nice and neat if we want to put some floor holes in. Let's go ahead and do that here. We'll do conveyor floor holes. Let's see here. How about right here and right here? And we're going to keep repeating this pattern over and over again. First things first, let's see. Oh, we have a carbon steel. Oh, that alternate recipe is already unlocked. I wonder if that's any more efficient. Let me go take a look real quick at this recipe here. 20 to 50, 2.5. No, that's no more efficient. That's not even worth considering. Okay, fine. So we can do 22.5 in one of these. Again, this is one of those super awkward number problems here where we really just want 60 and we're gonna end up with 67.5. At least until we start upgrading a little bit. So let's go ahead and do this. Like so. Okay. Steel. And I think that should be enough. Now, of course, we will want to double this as soon as we upgrade. So let's just see how big that looks. Yeah, that's still plenty of room here. We'll go ahead and lay this out, but we're not going to actually connect up these inputs to the rest of the system just yet. All right, so coming off the bottom of this, we get into a little bit more complexity here. We're going to just put this first one down to kind of figure out our spacing a little bit. I think something like that is how we're going to go with it, because what we want to do is have our splitters basically running smack into these. So the easiest way to do that is to make sure that they're going to line up nicely. So I think in theory, if I put my splitter down here, this should connect. So let me go ahead and pull this out the way and put this like so. I think that's gonna, nope, needs to come over just a little bit more. There we go, and we put a splitter here. Let's get rid of that. Okay, and if we did this correctly, we should be able to pull these out perfectly. There we go, and it turns blue when you have it lined up. And these just sit right inside of those a little bit. And again, that saves you on belts overall. So then we can just kind of repeat this pattern all the way down. All right, and there are our logistics flowing in. Just need to remove that spare conveyor pull. And then coal and iron are both going to come all the way down this run into here and into these 3 sets of lifts that go up to the first 3 foundries. The second 3, we will wait until we overclock all of these miners so that we can get more out of it. So for now, this will start our basic steel production. On to the next phase. So I had a little bit of thought about our logistics here and how this factory is going to end up being laid out. Originally, we had started to be doing this triangle sort of design that's going back this way a little bit, sort of just a big wedge that was kind of sitting out here on this block. But then I thought, what if this becomes the front here facing the lake? And then we get some nice balance with what we have going on here with our coal plant. So if this now becomes the front edge of this facility, that could look a little bit more interesting. So what we'd end up having here is our row of foundries, and potentially we could have multiple rows of foundries going back here. And then off of these wings, we would do our 2 steel products. We'd have our beams on one side and our pipes on the other. I think that could be an interesting look and feel for us here, so that it's not so just boxy factory like we do with a lot of our other builds. And again, all of this needs to be redone in my opinion. I think this is cool from the front, but that back wall is just driving me, just making me really irritated. So I think this is what we're going to do, is start to break up the space. This is a 45-degree angle that we have here, and we might do some interesting formations on the front too to make this look even more dynamic and dramatic. But then that means that our logistics get a little bit more complicated here. So I've got these various belts coming up and tucked into the machines very, very tightly here. And the reason why I'm doing that is I really want to show off these machines. Again, I think this is something that Fluxo does really well. Again, one of my favorite builders, where he's able to sort of encase his builds in concrete or whatever materials and kind of make them pop out, the machines to pop out. And it kind of just makes everything look a little bit more organic or industrial, I guess maybe the opposite of organic, but I love that synced in sort of a look. And we did that over there on our coal plant as well with these various coal burners so that the stacks are just popping right out. So maybe we'll do something similar here where these get ensconced a little bit and look like part of the factory. Oh, and you know what? My math is wrong. And the reason my math is wrong is because we can double again by moving up to Mark II miners. And of course, we can increase our production more than just 200% using those energy slugs. I think we can do it up to 250. So I think we do need to plan for something closer to in the neighborhood of 24 of these, which means this platform will come way back out over here, and we will have 2 different lines that we are moving up and into this facility. So to that end, I think we are going to put our row of assemblers starting back a little further here. I might just spec this out real quick just to see how it would be shaped if we had that many rows. So let me try that in just a second here. All right, so this is starting to give you a look and feel of what this would generally look like with more of these and where we need to start our rows of assemblers, which means closer to over here probably is where these actually are going to start popping up. Now, close observers will note that we're using mirror foundries. That means we're using Aquila's mirrored buildings pack, which is awfully nice for lining up these inputs to match up where we want. So if you look really carefully, you'll see this is basically the same building design, but it has one of these plonked on the front. This is the actual input here, or output here, I should say, not the piece of the container here that looks like it would normally be the output. But that means when we line up our belts, they're going to line up right nicely for all of our outputs coming out of this, and we can just have a happy little row that goes down this side here. So this will kind of give you a general idea of how this will all fit together once we have our full complement. Again, I'm going to leave all of these up here. It's no cost for me to just have them sitting there. I'm just not going to plug them in for right now. It's nighttime now, so it's a little hard to see, but our double ramps that I used over there again on our coal plant to give us a nice little texture also will work nicely in this design because it's going to sweep right under the edge of where we have these lining up. So I think that'll work out just about perfectly here to give this sort of a nice little diagonal piece so that it kind of folds underneath here. I'm going to start framing this in a little bit, and so let's just take out all of these extra blocks that we have for now, strip that back. We'll get rid of this column as well, take care of that, and we're just going to leave the bottom one there. We might want to build off that later, and it gives us a nice reference point. Let's take out the couple that are peeking out here. And let's see what this looks like if we go ahead and build this all the way down. How about to right here? And then we'll do the second row right in front of these foundations like that. All right, that's starting to look like something. I think that this could work out pretty well for us. We can also then start using the fact that we do have these diagonals off the side here to play with a little bit. So we could have these come up like this and start blending in a little bit into those sides if we wanted. So something like that could work. I might come another foundation forward with that, but it'll give you an idea of the sort of stuff that we are trying to play with here to give us some nice, interesting looking angles. So what if we do this? And again, this probably isn't going to be precisely what we want on the first try. We might have to go through and redo this a couple of times and figure out what does and doesn't work for us, you know, like we always do, moving things around. But yeah, that could be something. I think that could certainly be something. Maybe we come forward another half foundation or whatever, but I think these could come together very, very nicely in that sort of a feel to it. So, something to keep in mind as we play with this a little bit more. Now, for our actual constructors we're going to put down, the smart thing to do would be lay out our general logistics to start after this edge where the belts are going to be coming out so that they will be merged and ready to go. So somewhere around here is probably the ideal place to start that building, which means technically we probably want to do something like here-ish. So that's how those will come together. Now, just because I have this at this level, there's no reason I have to make this factory at that same level. I can have this peeking out over the top, and I can have my assembler plant actually lower down here if I wanted. We've got plenty of room. We've got more than enough room to move our logistics around here. So I think without getting too claustrophobic, we can actually bring this down a layer or two if we wanted. So maybe let's do that. Let's think about how far down we would go with this. So I think if this is sort of the centerpiece where all of these foundries are, having this maybe closer to 2 or 3 levels below that would be good. Now, the other thing I'm thinking about here is foundries look good sitting out. You know, coal plants look good sitting out. I think those are cool looking machines to just have laying around. I'd even go so far to say assemblers look good sitting out. Constructors, I'm sorry y'all, constructors are neat the first time you see them, but those waving arms on the side of the constructors, this is my least favorite part about the design. I think it's very realistic, it's very interesting, but these things bouncing up and down like some sort of chicken dance that it does with the elbow room that it needs, that's a little annoying, and I don't think it looks super great to have that exposed in a design. My particular problem with it is this right here. Although a single assembler will nicely fit down on a single foundation, it's going to be waving its arms outside the edges there. So you always want to give yourself extra room on the sides there when you're stacking these. A full foundation is an easy way to do that, but I don't like even seeing the waving arms. I don't really think that looks good as part of the design. So we are going to be tucking these a little bit further away so that we're not really seeing those waving arms happening. So that could be the right height. Let's see here. I'll do 1, 2. Yeah, just the tip of those poles always just want to stick right off the top of that foundation every single time. It's just a little too tall to be hidden in a 2 foundation tall, or excuse me, 8 meters altogether. So it's like 8 and like some change, and that's annoying. Okay, so with that in place, we can pretty easily start figuring out how we want all of these to sit. Let's see here. So steel beams, we can do 30 per minute. And steel pipes, we can do 15 per minute. But that also means that it needs 4 steel ingots here. And this one needs 3 steel ingots. So our balance isn't quite right. But if we perfectly split our belt and do twice as many on one side as the other side, we should have at least a throughput balance, even if our consumption rates are a little different, or rather our output rates will be a little different. So we only need 2 constructors to do a full 60 of our ingots per minute on this side. So you know what? We're not even going to use both of these off of that whole thing. We're just going to use 1. That is not a lot of throughput, so we are going to want to double this up as quickly as possible. So we're just going to have 1 for now. That's kind of anticlimactic. So you know what? Like we're going to put 2 for now. And actually, you know what? We're going to put more than 2. We're going to put 4 for now, so that we at least know how this is going to start to get laid out. And that means we are going to want an odd number of platforms here. So let's go out 1 more there, just like so. I think that's where these are going to start to be. It's hanging off a little on the front, hanging off a little on the back, but that's okay. That works well for me. All right, so I think that's the perfect height. We got plenty of room for our logistics and for Mr. Bean and for our miner slipping right underneath there, and that's going to just work nice and elegantly. And it fits perfectly in between our 8 meters. So we have a nice 6 meter clearance here. That's gonna be plenty for putting in logistics. I'm not too concerned about that. We're just gonna come up a little bit with it so that we can have our general pieces in here. We're gonna put in we're gonna do the same thing we did here. We're gonna tuck these back away, I think, for the outputs as much as we can. And then the inputs will run right down the middle here. Yes, I have clipping no clip turned on, which makes this nice and easy for us as well. So yeah, let's go down here, bop into the floor, put down our splitter, and then we're gonna do the same thing here. We're gonna do our mergers, and we want these to line up nice and tidily right along that front edge, and then back a little. And the reason why we do this is so that the output, that conveyor belt thing that pops out the front, the nose, we don't want that sticking out too far. We want this right here. So we can actually line this up nice and tidily. Whoop, too far through the floor. Right here in the middle of this. And this should work just about perfectly, I think. This is assuming that we want the stuff to go this direction, which we don't. So let's put our merger down the other direction. I think that's right. That might not be right, but we'll try it and see if that's too far back. I might have screwed this up. No, that's right. Sits right inside of there. Yeah, and it hides it away very nicely, neatly, and doesn't stick out so far. I think that looks nice for what I want. I might put it forward just a little bit further, but I do like that it fits in here and I don't have to worry about it clipping through a edge of a foundation. Similarly, these, we can get these nice and claustrophobic if we want, the same way on the backside. There we go, and that works really nicely there. I'm not going to connect the other one yet because we don't have enough pieces to go through, but I am going to go ahead and connect up at least the outputs off of this line here. And again, most of these I'm not wiring up. I'm just going to wire up the first here. This is future expansion that I'm setting up only. Now there is also, conveniently enough, a limestone node right here. So we're probably going to use that to our advantage, and to that end, we're not going to do beams on this side. I think for logistics simplicity, we'll do pipes on this side, and we will go ahead and do 2 of these. So let's see here, let's go copy that and paste that there. And so this way it makes it just a little bit easier here because we will be doing then the pipes on this side, and then when we do encased beams, we will already have that node sitting right over there waiting for us without having to do any additional work to get to it. So let's go ahead and put the outputs together here. All right, so I'm gonna go do all of the boring work of copying this over, putting it over here, laying out a whole nother duplicate factory on both sides, and starting to frame this in a little bit. And then, friends, we will get back together and do the fun part of decorating. All right, so there we have the beginnings of things here. I've swapped out everything for concrete. All of this is now hooked up. And we do have a little bit more I still need to replace with concrete here. I did notice they finally added these dismantle filters in the latest update, which is really nice because then you can just go and select all of these like concrete pieces and I don't have to hand tune this to avoid selecting the constructors, which makes this awfully nice to try and grab these, although some is still underneath the edges, but that makes short work of replacing a whole lot of structures really quickly. Boom. Perfect. Love it. So from that, we need to start figuring out what we want to do with the rest of this design. And I've started to have a few ideas about how this could work for us. So I think I want to start playing with some of these shapes that I can use these double ramps for to give me these diagonals that I want. So let me try something sort of like this and see where we land. That might be too high. But the idea is I want something that's kind of feel like it's attached off this side. I feel like if I come down one more block, that's going to line up right where we want it. So let's go ahead and take that off. Let's take that off. Let's try and put this into place right here. Can I get that on this edge? Love for you to fit right nicely on this edge for me, friend. Come on. Is that right? That looks right. And then if we come off of there... yeah, that'll do. And then we can just do a solid block off the side of that. And I think that'll connect in nicely. We're just going to do it on that edge there. There we go. That's starting to look like something. I could almost make that doubled up so it's extra chunky. And then I could carve this out a little bit here, I think. But some of this does need to be for routing logistics, so I think having some of it open and some of it closed off might be the way to be. Maybe these go on the outside of this, like I could come over another row or two here, something like this, and then that'll start to feel even more like a structure that's intentional, I think. So it kind of gives it these wings. So that might be the way to do this here, but then this kind of doesn't go into anything on this side. If I did that, I would want to do it sort of back here as well, a little bit off the back of this, and that could be okay, but maybe I need to come over one more block for that. Anyway, I'm going to tinker with this a little bit and see what I end up liking, because I do think it could be interesting as a design to have something like that. We could even take these like all the way down if we wanted. If it'll let us, let's see here. Will you let me go the other way? No, you won't. Well, something like this is the general idea. So that kind of is sitting perched up here as a platform. And then I could do the same thing off of these, right? I could go back in where I had them on this side. Maybe just pull this out temporarily. And then we can start pulling these down as well. And that'll give us these little legs that kind of stick down into the ground, and I think could look kind of cool. Again, similar to what we did on the coal factory. I just think that as a design style could work really well for us for this build. All right, so I'm trying something out here. I'm using these 8-meter inverted ramps that come with structural solutions. I think this is a really, really nice way to get a nice, long, dramatic, sharp diagonal, the same way that we do with these double ramps. It is making me think, however, that I should double up on these double ramps, which we could do through a variety of ways. One way to do that is, of course, to take the inverted ramps and put a regular ramp on top. So if we take that, or excuse me, a tall 8-meter ramp on top, we could do something like this. And now this starts to get us an even chunkier look. It's just a question of where do we want the line to be? Do we want it to be in the middle, or do we want the line to be in between here? So there we go, now you can kind of see. Do you want the line to go down the center like that, or do you want the line to go down the middle of the two blocks? So that's that's kind of the design aesthetic choice that you have to make here between these two to get that basically same look and feel. Technically, these are going to be the exact same diagonal, I believe. It's just going to look slightly different depending on which you choose. Now, as we're getting a little further into the design here, I think having these hex frame windows could look really nice in contrast with these big solid concrete blocks. I do like the look of these roofs that are just the standard fix-it roofs. I think those are really good. I do want to replace them potentially with the solar roofs once we unlock those from Refined Power, but as I recall, there's a bug with the solar roofs and they only work to generate power if they are at least 4 meters. So I might not do this exact look here with these 1 meter roofs, although I think it looks nice. You can't see it from the ground anyway, it doesn't really matter. But I do need to figure out what's going to go on with this. Now, because of where I have these constructors placed, they are basically exactly 9 meters tall is kind of the problem. So we can actually clip blocks onto them into the roof like that, and that works just fine. I don't think that's necessarily problematic. It is a little boring. We might go ahead and do the 1 meter roof flats, or the roof flats, not the 1 meter roofs, sorry, instead here. And that could look really kind of interesting too, I think, potentially. We just have to figure out exactly what it is that we want to do. So we're slowly poking away at this build here, and I think we're starting to get into the box of where I want it. But I still want to work on this edge here a little bit more. I feel like this is sticking out a little bit more than it needs to. So maybe what we'll do here is put some more walls around this. Let's try some diagonal walls. We'll get these big corners here maybe. Maybe something like this will do a little bit better job. There we go, of blending into the space. So yeah, maybe we just try overlapping this a little bit and see where we end up. I'm okay with that sticking out a little bit here just because of the choices we have. Having a little bit of overflow I don't think is the worst thing in the world. I think this could work. I wish it was scooched over just a little bit, but honestly only y'all are ever gonna see that particular corner. So I think that could yeah, I think that could work well for us. I also wish we had some diagonal roof pieces here to clean this up a little bit, but sadly we do not. But yeah, I think this does the job. All right, and here we have our mostly finished design. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. Now, I do want to go back and add some lighting details to it, but I'm just kind of out of time right now, and I haven't actually gotten a chance to go through and get the billboards unlocked yet. So there's still a little bit more to do here. I'll probably do that at the beginning of the next episode. So we still have a lot of logistics to lay out inside. Only the first row of foundries is actually connected to anything. But the foundries are producing steel. The steel is going into this side here to slowly produce our steel pipes. And then on the other side, they're slowly producing our steel beams coming out there. Now, all of those ingredients then are being piped into these storage chambers, which are kind of just sitting in the edge here so that we can get to them easily. So steel beams are coming out there, and lots of steel pipes are coming out there. So that's kind of our facility. Let me show you sort of how this works a little bit. The actual entrances are all from the top here. So let's go ahead and turn off clip. Let's turn off fly. There we go. All right, so we have these very, very long stairwells as we enter into the facility, coming up each side here. And that kind of takes us around the edges of the production facilities there to the side where we're making those steel items. So you can kind of climb up here and get to all of our foundries from this top space here. Now, to actually gain entrance to the facility, you actually have to go in through one of the other side entrances. I didn't connect these up yet. Maybe I'll do a little ramp off the side here or something. I'll figure it out later. But you can come up these main steps, and that brings you into our actual foundry logistics floor and the foundries themselves. From there, you can kind of come inside here, hop down, and on each side we have our production facilities here. Now, this is using those F-holes again that I really like from Structural Solutions, with a little bit of the trim as well. Nice and glowy. Logistics, of course, are going on the ground floor, and then all of our assemblers are up here on the top floor. and we have lovely views of the entire region from the observation areas around the sides of that. So in a nutshell, that's kind of our whole facility and how all of the pieces fit together. I did, of course, leave the inside kind of open for now because this is going to become another logistics floor right here for all of the other foundries that are directly above our head. So this is just kind of a little janky for now, and we're just going to live with that. I also left these open because I honestly kind of like it just being open. I was playing with different ways of doing roofs across here, and I certainly might come back here and fill that in with a series of roofs. You could put some diagonals on here. Where is it? The 8-meter walls that are angled. Where's that thing at? Yeah, like these. You could just plunk these down on here if you wanted and have this go all the way across, something like this. But you know, I don't think it really adds anything to do that. So open is how we're gonna go for now. I do like these little extra details they added with the double ramps here. I think this is a nice little textural element, and I think with having the stairs across the side of this too, it really gives it some visual interest that I find fascinating. But I think once we add some billboards maybe onto these ramps, or at least onto the like back sides of them, that'll look even cooler than it does now. But for now, I'm pretty happy with this. So with that done, that brings us to the end of this episode of Enterprise Architecture. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you back here next time. Bye, friends!